Hello, everybody. Recording live from somewhere.
Welcome everybody back to the Pursuit Pod. Of course, I'm your host, Calvin Lymper, and today we've got a special one, kind of. We're going to be talking all college basketball in the Roundball Rock section. We're going to be talking about a lot of hockey stuff. Clemson spring game just happened, and then we also have all Philly sports for the most part, except for Eagles, obviously, but Phillies are back in the swing of things. We're going to be talking to them for the first time since, I think, the first episode. So I'm super excited to just delve right into it. I'm super excited to relay my talking points to all of you. So without further ado, as always, let's get into it with the Roundball Rock segment for this week. So first of all, the story of the basketball world, especially for March Madness, was the fact that UConn stunned Duke in that incredible last-second shot to move on to the Final Four to preserve the Dan Hurley legacy. And I will say that this shot was electric. I truthfully, I didn't watch a lot of the game until the very end. I was busy with work. I was busy with just doing different things. Had a busy day in the office for Clemson Video that day, and I just wanted to rest. But I saw that it was a close game, so I put it on for the last 5-10 minutes in the second half. And I actually was going to the dining hall here at Clemson, and that shot happened on my phone. All of a sudden, all the guys in the dining hall just started jumping up, screaming. It was a really, really cool experience. I love those kinds of things where I love audience reactions. I love the crowd pops. I love hearing that. It's just so cool. It was so cool to hear that. Just kind of that collective, everyone reacting to what's going on. And I was just sitting there oh my God, that is nuts. But it was insane. It was the most avoidable mistake by Duke. It really reminded me of the Furman, Virginia game. But that being said, with this Final Four matchup, the two games being set up, I really do not see UConn or Illinois taking down the winner of Arizona versus Michigan. And that's really my take for this Final Four. I think that this is a Super Bowl situation. I think that it's just like how I said the Rams-Seahawks, whoever wins that, guaranteed Super Bowl. I think that it's Arizona versus Michigan. I mean, obviously, the Huskies they're absolute fighters. It's written all over Dan Hurley's personality. And they're going to be playing a more elite Illinois team defensively as they took down that hot Iowa team beforehand. So, especially because Illinois also took down Houston, who I had as my title favorite in the Sweet 16. Illinois' key to their game against UConn is to limit Therese Reed on the inside game in the paint, and that's the key to them winning. But I mean, that's the thing about UConn. They come from behind, they fight, even when they're out of it. It's never a guarantee, and that's one of those things. I always talk about to my friends about shots that you see in March or shots that you see in the college basketball world that you just know it's going to go in because it's just such an outlandish shot. In the NBA, who knows if that shot goes in? But in March, in the NCAA tournament, that shot was absolutely going to go in the moment that it left his fingers. And I was watching, I was like, bang, that's going in. That's going right in. But again, that's really the personality of this UConn team. That's the personality of Dan Hurley. And I'm not the biggest fan of, Dan Hurley, being a Villanova guy, being someone who's, my family's a big Villanova people. I will say that I'm not the biggest fan of Dan Hurley. I think he's annoying. I think that very outspoken. But at the same time, I'm so conflicted. And I was talking to my buddy about this the other day. I don't like the conversation that we would be entering if Dan Hurley wins a third championship, because he's probably going to in the next few years, because then he's going to rival, he's probably going to be over Izzo, arguably. He's going to start getting that conversation with the Coach K's of the world. He's going to rival Jay Wright. He's going to beat Jay Wright in terms of natties. Will he beat him in terms of NBA talent and just overall development? That's a different story. But people look at the rings, and when the rings are talking, Dan Hurley's going to be up there. But again, he's such an outlandish personality. And overall, I think that he just kind of embodies that fighter mentality. And as much as I don't like him, I do love that he's so about his team. He's so ride or die for his team. He's so about what's it called? He's so about his players. He's so about their success. He'll never turn his back on them. He'll never openly talk bad about one of his players. He's willing to go after the referees. He's willing to go after other coaches. It's admirable. He's the perfect definition of a coach that you would love to have if he is on your team, but when you're against him, you just hate him. You want him to get ejected as soon as possible. And there's a conversation about him headbutting that ref after that big shot was hit. That, is that a technical? Should that have been a free throw? I don't think so. I think it's one of those moments where it's like, unless Dan Hurley got naked on the court, I don't see a reason for any technical free throws to be put there. And even if the Duke coach was acting erratically, there's no reason to give free throws to UConn. It's just one of those things that you got to call it in the moment. You got to call it for the sake of being a historic moment. If they take away that historic moment, that once in a lifetime shot that comes off a Duke mistake just because Dan Hurley headbutts a referee, that's so stupid. And I saw the Duke announcers, the student announcers saying oh, there should be a technical there, but come on. Caden Boozer just blew the game for you guys. You don't need to try to get rid of the salt in the wound that's already making things sizzling down there in the blood. So, but overall, I don't really see UConn or Illinois. But again, UConn national championship if they get there, unless Illinois, turns up the noise there. I think that UConn probably will go to the championship. But that's the thing. It's always a conversation of Dan Hurley's there in the championship. What can you do there? But we're looking at Arizona, the most relentless team in the tournament, who they've just destroyed every opponent they face. They don't give up. They've just been killing every team in the paint, which is just truly the philosophy of their team. But then you also have the Wolverines, Michigan. They're arguably the most complete team of the tournament. They're the team that are the absolute favorites for someone that doesn't watch ball, someone that does watch ball. They just have overall size, elite defense, star power on offense. Again, Rams Seahawks. This is the debate. It's Rams Seahawks again. It's Arizona versus Michigan. That's the true national championship to me. I just don't think UConn or Illinois have the elite coaching. I mean, not elite coaching. I don't know if they have the elite power, ability to take down an Arizona, to take down a Michigan. I think this really is a year that we're going to see a one seed just make it all the way there. And since we had that conversation about Dan Hurley, I think that it's very appropriate, especially with the recent week, to talk about Will Wade. And this is a passionate one. LSU coming in, another coach gets poached to them. I don't know if it's poached is the right word. I mean, who would have guessed? Who would have guessed LSU? Lane Kiffin, Kim Mulkey, and now Will Wade. They're just embracing larger-than-life personalities in their coaching staffs for their specific sports, especially the basketball, football side. And I mean, this is just coming after a year where, Will Wade just relentlessly trashed NC State, trashed its roster all year round. When they had mistakes that normal NCAA teams would have, they still made it to the tournament, at least the first four. But again, it's just, I don't know how much you can like Will Wade after this year. I mean, yeah, McNeese was cool. Holmir Khan, Oricon, that was cool, but he's returning to LSU. First of all, he's calling it home, which is, I won't even get into how stupid that is because, Clemson, and then, yeah, he coached at LSU, whatever. I don't really know if you can call LSU home. There's just a lot of factors with that. I won't even get into how stupid that is, though. But, I mean, overall, the way to sum up this whole situation would be Jay Mariotti. He wrote a scathing column on Will Wade for a Substack. He called Will Wade a cheater and a liar. He criticized large buyouts and the contracts of the LSU coaches across their sports. And he also noted Will Wade's pre-NIL violation to player spending. And now he's talking about how he's going to swear himself to following the rules this time. Will Wade's overall it's just like the Lane Kiffin situation. I just think he's a snake. Obviously, he didn't leave during the tournament, right before the tournament. But the fact is that there's interviews that you've seen and there's press conferences that you've seen of him where he specifically stated, oh, the LSU job's open? Oh, shoot. The LSU job's open. I might as well, And he's going to go back to being like, oh, this NC State team is just absolute garbage. We got nothing going for us. We're not going to go anywhere. And that's just when I get being frustrated with your players, but when you lose hope in your team, how is your team supposed to have the motivation? How are you supposed to? This was really just a ticking time bomb. And LSU is really going to be just the most despicable college to watch across all sports. I mean, again, with Kiffin and now Will Wade, people already don't like Kim Mulkey for women's basketball. I think she's a good coach, but she's definitely a big personality. So it's a big gamble that LSU is taking and trying to be unlike, well, they already had Brian Kelly before. Like, I don't know what their motivation here is as to why they're taking these huge personalities and their big buyouts alongside it. But to end out this Will Wade burn fest, Mariotti, the guy the journalist who wrote this column on him, really put it simply with he started his column out with the analogy of a waffle cone, like ice cream and a waffle cone, and he stated to close out his article, never trust the Will Wade waffle cone. When piled with goo, it crashes. And that's really just the main takeaway from this. It's a funny it's a funny analogy, but overall that's it. Just we have a great Final Four and a very snaky coach. But what can you expect? To delve into the hockey segment, this has been, the playoff race is heating up right now. It's still wide open as for what the bracket's going to look like, at least in the East. But there's been some crazy news recently. There's just been some crazy news, specifically with Bruce Cassidy being out of Vegas, and then Torts comes in and replaces him. Maybe the most shocking move in the NHL this year. Maybe the most shocking move in the NHL right now, at least. He is the first playoff-bound coach to be fired after the trade deadline since, I think, 2008. It was said 2007. I think it was changed 2008 because there was someone else. And I mean, the Knights have been 4-10-2 under Cassidy since the Olympic break. Mark Stone, the captain, their boy, affirmed that the team has just lacked emotion overall. Their chemistry has just gotten stale. And that's why they're going to bring in a fiery coach like Tortorella to spark up the emotions again for Vegas heading into the playoffs. And as a Flyers fan, someone who has the experience of, John Tortorella, especially in his post-Stanley Cup winning years, yeah, he's a fun coach. He's got the fire. He's going to take down players with big egos. He's going to just not ruin team chemistry, but he's willing to take it down if it means that we're going to try to get the team focused. And there's a lot to admire about him. Is he the best coach? He has a Stanley Cup under his belt. Is he the best coach right now? I don't know. I mean, again, we were trying to rebuild under him, soft rebuild at least under him in Philadelphia. So I'm not sure how big of a factor he could have been to that. But we fired him before the season ended. So I don't have the best experience with him, and he's not the best coach overall. He's a very intelligent mind in hockey. I mean, he's been doing analyst work, but it's just such an odd thing. Like, right before the playoffs, too, when you're already playoff bound, I get you've had the rough stretch of games after the Olympic break, and the team has just been falling apart. But then you get rid of your Stanley Cup winning coach and a more recent Stanley Cup winning coach at that with Bruce Cassidy, and you get rid of him just out of nowhere. I mean, again, some people said that they saw it coming because how unexpected is this move entirely? Because Vegas is not known for their loyalty so far in this small stretch of their franchise so far. They haven't really had any real defining players that have been there for a long time, defining coaches that have been there for a long time. I guess it was Bruce Cassidy at this point, but how unexpected is it in this move that it is Vegas, that they've had, a zero tolerance for failure, that they're going to be the ones that are going to be disloyal to their players or staff. Cassidy's a proven coach. But then you have to wonder, how bad is this 4-10-2 stretch? It's bad for standings, definitely, but Vegas ranked third in 5v5 expected goal share metric since the Olympic break, as well as the shot share and shot attempt share, and they've also allowed the fewest shots against per 60 possessions. Of course, it's still last in shooting percentage, second to last in save percentage. But now that's all the metrics that point to good coaching. That's all the metrics that point to good coaching. So how are you going to blame bad chemistry? How are you going to blame stale chemistry, I guess is the better word, and just no emotion from the team? How are you going to blame it on the coach? I guess because it's not college basketball where, if the players aren't trying, it's probably on the coach that's just not leading them in the right direction. But like for a professional league, how much is it, of the players not caring? How much can you really blame on Bruce Cassidy, especially this is a coach that's proven. This is a coach that, and again, maybe it's just the whole sense of the whole, Vegas thing. They've been kind of sliding since they had a pretty good start to the year. They've been sliding, and again, they have that zero tolerance for failure. I just wonder, if that's almost what's ruining the chemistry of the team. I wonder if that's what's ruining everyone firing on all the same cylinders of the team, just the legacy of the franchise so far, the legacy of their management so far. I wonder if maybe there has to be a change in that if they want to actually get. And I think that Vegas has done a really good job in their franchise so far. Don't get me wrong. I think they've done a great job. I mean, really fast Stanley Cup coming in only like in their fifth year of existence. They made a Stanley Cup final in their first year as a franchise, which is absolutely absurd. You'll never see an expansion team in any sport ever again do that unless they make some crazy moves. So that's just absurd. I mean, Vegas, all due respect, but maybe if you keep setting this precedent, that's what could ruin this chemistry. You could just ruin, if I have a bad game, I might as well give up because I want to get traded anyway in the offseason, that kind of thing. And now you have Bruce Cassidy, proven coach, Stanley Cup winning coach, and he's now in the coach's version of free agency. And I think he's undoubtedly going to be picked up for next year. And there's going to be a lucky team that gets him, especially if he can bring that experience, a cup experience, over to another NHL franchise. It's going to be very interesting to see that. Quick little interlude before we go into another bigger topic, but Macklin Celebrini, we've talked about him a lot on this pod so far. He capped off his Make My Name Known year. He hit the 100-point mark, and he becomes the sixth teenager to do so, as well as being the youngest amongst those five other players when they hit the mark to actually get that century mark. And I mean, he is joining legendary company like Wayne Gretzky. Already, you can just full stop there. You also got Sidney Crosby, full stop. Mario Lemieux, we're going to full stop there because that's already just amazing company. Macklin Celebrini has become a Hart candidate in his second year in the NHL. Second year in the NHL, which is just absolutely absurd. And I saw a meme about him. If you guys ever watched Dune, that he's the Lisan Al Gaib. I think that's pretty appropriate. I think that you can say that Macklin Celebrini is, he's the prince that was promised. He is the one. I think that it's going to be incredible. He's single-handedly turning around this San Jose franchise. It's Macklin Celebrini. I mean, he already made the Canada team. He made it over the generational prospect in Bedsy. He made it over all these other established NHL players. This is Macklin Celebrini. It's Macklin Celebrini time. He did great on the international stage, and he's going to be Hart winner in the next 2 years. At one of the next 2 years, he's going to win the Hart. And will he win the Cup? Not sure. It really depends on if they can get a good team around him overall to actually let him to become a consistent playoff performer. But big ups to Macklin Celebrini. The Pursuit Pod will name him as the Lisan Al Gaib of the NHL. So, to finish out the My Stick on the Ice segment, we have to talk about Buffalo. They're still fighting right now. Currently sitting in second place of the Atlantic with 98 points. Just they're dreaming of adding some drops of liquid to this playoff drought. And how did we get here, I guess, is the biggest question. We've talked about the Sabres before in previous pod episodes, but how did what are the steps that they've had to actually get here? They turned their season around from being among the worst teams in the league all the way up until the point in December that now they're like one of the most fun teams to watch. They're coming in hot. They're coming in blazing into this playoff race. 98 points right now. what happened? How did Buffalo get here? And what can teams learn from what Buffalo's doing this year to learn how to rapidly turn around their season? And I think it really just starts out with the fact that the Sabres this year, they are very closely just following the strategy of the 2019 St. Louis Blues. The 2019 St. Louis Blues, Stanley Cup champions that year, both teams made major front office changes mid-season, like around December, January mark. For the Sabres, of course, it was their general manager, Kevin Adams, who they fired in December during their bad start to the year. And the Blues, it was their head coach. Both teams turned around their records from being among one of the worst records in the league to just a hot ends to the year. Obviously, the Blues went all the way, won their Stanley Cup, and they had just had some really good magic along the way. But now you have to see the Sabres are almost following the same exact format. Let's look at the numbers here. So they went 31-7-4 since Adams was fired as general manager, and they've given up the fewest goals allowed per game with 2.6. They have 13 players with double-digit goals. Their team is shooting a percentage of 13.6%, which is the second best in the league. Their team's goals versus expected goals is 13%, which is easily, again, top 5 in the league. And now the question is just, is this a team, is it like the Ducks where they started their season so hot, they were just all this young talent, and then they ended up just plateauing until they got to the playoffs? I mean, it's kind of the opposite. This Buffalo was plateauing, and then they just made their way up exponentially. The question is, will this be another fun young team that just implodes come playoff time? Elliot Friedman says that Buffalo's strategies are it's essentially river hockey. It's like what you would see in a pickup game, your local outdoor rink. And the key to them is just Buffalo plays at a speed that is it just simply outpaces other defenses in the NHL. They lead the NHL in rush goals. They have the highest shooting percentage off the rush, not to mention their tandem is holding a .901 save percentage collectively, which is just behind Colorado and Minnesota, which, again, on paper, those are two of the most loaded tandems in the league. And again, we've talked about the goaltending dilemma. We talked about how that could make a big difference in the playoffs, at least it used to, and maybe if this playoffs will be a little more traditional than it will. You have that fun offense that they can score. They don't allow a lot of shots, and they beat out, expected goals kind of deal. Now the question is just, can that, third best goalie tandem in the league, will they keep that up come playoff time? Will they make themselves difference makers, especially because the rest of the Buffalo roster is filled with a lot of young talent, and all this talent, they are facing this issue of potential postseason pressure that they're not used to. And could this end up getting into the heads of the more inexperienced players? I mean, obviously you have guys like Tage Thompson, who won gold with USA in the Olympics, had a fair amount of experience with that kind of pressure. But that's what you have to ask, will the goalie tandem of Buffalo be enough, especially if they can stay consistent going into the playoffs, if they make it, going into the playoffs? Can that override the younger players not having a lot of experience in the playoffs, or will the pressure even get to them in general? I guess the biggest question I'm proposing to people watching and just, hockey fans in general is this Sabres run. Is it just some regular season magic, or are the Sabres really poised for a very fun playoff run? Especially if the Flyers don't make it, I can say that out of the East, I am rooting for Buffalo because my buddy, his family is based in Buffalo. He's always been a big Buffalo guy outside of Philly. So I can say it's the fun story, especially if you can get a team that was like the Blues go all the way again. It just shows it's just the true power of sports. You can start out as terribly as you want, and as long as, you make the changes, you get things rolling, then you can definitely make your way to the playoffs. You can definitely make yourself have a deep run. And again, it could be an experience because that's what we're going to see with teams like the Ducks. They're going to go in the playoffs, had a great year, but then there's going to be stretches in the season where you realize they're a more inexperienced team. You're going to see that with the Mammoth as well. Just inexperienced. Who knows how well they'll do in a postseason predicament, in a postseason scenario. it's a lot of questions that you have to think about and that will run through your mind when it comes to Buffalo, when it comes to those kind of younger teams. So that's really all I have for the general NHL discussion. Really just talking about Buffalo, talking about the Vegas news because that's just absurd. That's just absurd sports news in general. So, and now we're going to move into the Philadelphia Flyers on our Phanatic segment. And it's been such a fun last few weeks for the Flyers because I've said a billion times in this pod the past few weeks, oh, it's over. Because we had one loss, it's over. The odds aren't in our favor, but thing is, we're sitting at 22.2% playoff odds according to Money Puck, and that's even after the Capitals loss last night that we lost 6-4, I believe. And it was just frustrating because any point would have boosted our odds exponentially. But the thing is, we got very lucky because the other teams that we need to lose ended up losing and not getting a point. So essentially, we're in the same exact playoff spot, or at least the playoff fighting spot. It just happens that we're one less game for room for error. So that means that, this game against Detroit coming up is going to be massive. We need to get a point. We need to not lose in regulation. As long as it's tied going into overtime, then the odds will increase. I mean, obviously a win will get our odds way up, but it's really just watching every single game at this point, watching all the rest of schedules, because the Flyers can do it. Obviously, if we didn't have that rough stretch in the center of the year before the Olympic break, then we would be golden right now. But we've just been doing so hot, and now let's talk about the factors going into that. It's just been a whole other story here with the Flyers. They're still fighting. They're still, even after the Capitals lost, they're still only around a win in terms of points behind the wild card and also the third spot in the Metro. Only a win behind. They're only 2 points behind. Again, it depends on what the other teams around us do, but we're right there. We're right there, man. The Bullies are right there before we get another home game in Philadelphia for the playoffs, and which is just going to be so much fun if we can get that. Owen Tippett was a huge star for us, the X Factor. He had a hat trick in a massive win over Detroit this past week, as well as a big Trevor Zegras, the Big Z himself, overtime winner versus the Stars to seal the run to continue on fighting. And Trevor Zegras, I think they're engaged in some contract extension talks with him, which is going to be great because he's just turned his career around. He's become a captain in a way for us. And I have his jersey, so I don't want him to get moved yet. But it's just looking up and up. It's just looking up and up, especially with him and Tippett being leaders. TK doing well, and even Coots getting in some pretty big goals. Like when Detroit was scored like 3 straight in a matter of minutes against us in that game. They pulled their goalie Couturier, just easy shot across the ice, sealed the game. Which again, he's been rare in his goal scoring this year, but that's what captains do. So it was just amazing to see. It was absolutely amazing to see. And another thing about this fight for the Flyers, the fact that they're doing it against the best of the best in the league, at least the best of the best in terms of just teams that make the playoffs. They're 4-2-1 against teams in playoff position since the Olympic break in this past stretch before the Capitals game. Not to mention that the key has been the young talent pulling their weight. I mean, obviously the biggest news, and he had a game against Capitals last night, but Porter Martone, our MSU star, has been signed to the team. He's finally playing for us. He's going to bring in size with his skill at his frame. He had 61 assists in his draft year before we brought him in. He has the gravity that will draw in defenders, that he's going to be able to quickly pass it around. He's a chippy player that just fits the mold of the Flyers. So he's going to come in and hopefully, he got his jitters out against Washington. Hopefully he can, especially if we go to the playoffs, we'll see something good from him. Denver Barkey came in. He's been second in expected goals for 5v5 since the break. Alex Bump comes in, 6 points in his first 11 games. Mitchkov has been returning to his stardom with 10 points over those 16 games. And even Jamie Drysdale reeling in 3 goals since the Olympic break. So it's just been amazing. And we got to give some credit to my man Ursan, man. it's one of those things that you just did not expect, because we were looking at Ersan as if he was one of the worst goalies. He was one of the worst goalies in the NHL during that rough stretch in the middle of the season. And now we're seeing Ersan becoming huge for goal, or huge in goal for us during this stretch as well. And this has really been the story of this Flyers team, especially we saw last night against Washington. Dan Vladar gave up a lot of easy goals, and that's really the whole thing. But the tagline of this Flyers season is, if they get saves, it's a win, because we have the offensive firepower, especially recently, to get scores, to get things going. We have the defense right now because we're hungry for these playoffs right now. I mean, Ersan, he was all over Instagram feeds for that highlight reel save against the Stars. Vladar, I mean, he was shaky last night, but he's still been consistent. Ersan has won his last 5 games with a .935 percentage in those few contests. Again, it's been just more consistent goaltending presence. That we talked about Buffalo and how their goaltending could make or break, honestly, the pressure of the inexperienced younger players that'll be for them if they go to the playoffs. That's the thing for the Flyers. If we go to the playoffs and we have consistent goaltending presence, especially with the fact that we won over Detroit, we won over Dallas, that could be huge. Imagine the run that we can have. Just imagine the run. And so, again, like I said before, since all the other bubble playoff hopeful teams lost last night alongside us, we're really looking at the same odds. Again, just without a game of wiggle room. We had one more loss. I think my buddy was saying we had that one loss. We took that last loss. I think we still have room for another one if need be, but this is the thing. We're running out of games to play. We have less than 10 games left. This game versus Detroit is huge. This can boost our odds from the 22.2 I talked about today to 31.9% to make the playoffs if we win outright. And if we get a single point, it will be 18.7%. So we just need to get a point at all costs, especially because we might not get as lucky as we did last night with all the other teams that we need to lose, or the other teams that we need to lose actually losing as well. So this will be huge if we can get a win or a point here. That's the story of the Friday game. I hope everyone will be tuned in, even if you're watching and you're in the Clemson area or you're not a Philly person. You got to be watching this Flyers game. You got to be watching it because the Pursuit Pod said so. So, yeah, it's so exciting. It's so nerve-wracking, though. And I unfortunately probably won't be home to see a home playoff game if it gets to that point, but we got to do it for the city. We got to do it for the city because all the teams are just looking overall just a little mid-tier right now. We gotta boost we gotta make Philadelphia interested in the Flyers once again, and it's been coming back. They talked about them on 94.1. Let's see it, bullies. It's big. They're my favorite team right now, I gotta say, just because of how it's just making it so fun to watch. Just knowing that if they win, they're hungry for the win. If they win, they just stay hot. If you keep getting hot in hockey, you'll continue hot. You'll keep winning games. We gotta just keep that. To go back to some of the mid, unfortunately, this is good news though. The Sixers, their big three, has come back at the perfect time in the season, pushing for that non-play-in spot. They had a huge 4-point victory over Charlotte in this last week, where Embiid had 29-6. Paul George, PG, had 26 and 13, and then Maxey comes in. He's also off of the injury, and he's bringing in 26 himself with 8 dimes. The team has just finally been playing to the standards of Morey's vision when he signed PG in the summer before last, and it just has shown how important the injuries have been to the success of this team. But now is this sustainable? Because then you roll into a game versus the Miami Heat, where the Sixers just absolutely dropped a crucial one. They're now 1.5 games back on that 6th seed, and Brian Toporek, who writes for Sports Illustrated for the Sixers beat, said it best, saying that they were just playing fourth quarter bozo ball, his quote, aimlessly passing around the perimeter, praying for the Heat to fall asleep or for individual greatness to bail them out. And that's just the thing. How sustainable is this big three play for the Sixers, especially if they want to keep their push rolling, if they want to keeping on with that standard of play, if they want to move on out of that play-in spot, because I don't trust the Sixers team in the play-in spot right now. They're going to need to utilize this upcoming back-to-back versus Minnesota and Detroit to focus one game on having PG and Embiid in at the same time so they can guarantee a split, because with the way that they're looking right now, it's just, you're not going to have that duo, especially in back-to-backs, maybe for the rest of the season, unfortunately. So a win over Minnesota or Detroit would be crucial. So we need to utilize both players at least in one game just to make sure that we can guarantee a win there. And now we got some Phillies talk for the first time since we started the pod all the way back in late October, early November. And I will say I'm thinking about potentially adding a segment to the podcast. And I want to hear everyone's thoughts on this. And I might, if I really come down to it, I might have a vote on what we'll name the actual segment, what we'll name the little sign that you see in the corner there, for adding in some MLB discussion. And I got some buddies who are going to be just absolutely thrilled to talk MLB, kind of take over for me for that segment. So I'm absolutely willing to continue the MLB talk, to get that going, especially because we're going to be into the swing of the games coming up now since opening days have begun, the season has started. So let me know if you want an MLB segment of the podcast. And I'm sorry for not covering football this week or for 4th and 4. Again, just it's been slow before, the draft starts up. And then when the draft approaches, we'll get into our whole draft thing. We'll do a mock draft. But let me know if you want the MLB segment. It'll add more talking points. It'll make the episodes longer. It'll add some more analysis. Let me know, because I'm willing to do my research for it. I'm willing to get more into it. Just let me know. And if so, I'll give the options for what I might name the segment, put on Instagram, have the people vote. So, viewer's choice here. Just like fielder's choice is the viewer's choice here. Let me know what you guys want me to do. But now let's talk some Phils, some fighting Phils. Yeah, it's been kind of treacherous. I think hopefully that this is just them getting their late season collapse out of the way now. They're starting the season out 2-3 in this opening series versus the Nationals and the Rangers. And I mean, opening day was so exciting. It just caused people to remember why they love this team so much, why people care about the Phillies. Just the bats were going off, the pitching was fine. And then they dropped 3 straight, Rangers and Nationals. They just have no offensive spark in the second and third game against the Rangers to begin the games. And these first 4 games, the bats are hitting 189. This is a team with Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, even like Alec Boehm, Trey Turner, and we're hitting 189 to start the year out. It's better than us starting out hot and then we hit the 189 later on, which is the usual thing. So I'm hoping that these 3 games at least soften the blow of the late season collapse later on. And even besides that, like Schwarber, besides that home run that he hit in opening day, Turner and Harper, before this last night's Nationals game, they all were putting up single-digit WRC plus numbers, which is just absolutely terrible for a majors player, first of all, but also for guys of their caliber. Taijuan Walker blew his first season start after giving up 10 hits and 7 runs before reaching that 5-inning mark. So just the bats haven't been hitting, the offense hasn't been there, but also the defense and the pitching hasn't really been there. Overall, it's just like, what is going on here in Philadelphia to start out? The Nationals loss on Monday might have been the worst Phillies game in this era period. My buddy who's in the Phillies was saying, he was there, he was like, he wasn't there, but he was like, yeah, this is terrible. I watched the whole thing. Lost 13-2 or whatever the score was. It was just absolute garbage. But then you have Andrew Painter, he was faced with the pressure of having to be the guy that begins the turnaround for the Phillies, hopefully. And he just, in his first career start, in his first major start, he bangs out his pro debut with 8 Ks, 8 strikeouts on 5.5 innings, and only 1 earned run. He looked absolutely sharp. He looked like the prospect that we've been eyeing to help us out last year. And this was a massive comeback win for the Phillies. So, and they kept it close to the end, but they ended up edging the Nationals out. Could Andrew Painter have just started the spark and the shift the Phillies needed to truly begin their 2026 season? And that is just incredible stuff from the young pitcher, the guy on the mound. So, Andrew Painter, man. Andrew Painter, big ups to him. Big round of applause for him. What a way to begin your pro career. What a way to, take the stress off the rest of the team. And what a way to try to find the spark for this Phillies team. It's just admirable stuff. And now to close out this pod, let's move into the Clemson Corner. And we're just going to talk spring game. Just a few spring game reactions based on the reports and a little preview to the potential stars of each season. So people watching Clemson know what to look out for. So Christopher Rosina has officially been named the QB1 with Tate Reynolds as QB2. Dabo stated that the two are very separated for right now. But, and I've noted this just in my notes of looking at, the outlook for next season. The fact that Dabo specifically stated that Vizina hasn't done anything to back up, but Tate has done nothing but move up so far. Is it likely that we see a Tate Reynolds start mid-season? I think so. Again, Vizina has obviously looked like the most ready of any quarterback in the orange and white depth chart. After last season, of course, he came in for SMU, had a pretty solid game. There was a big film review YouTube video from this guy who covers film all the time, watching every play by Vizina in that SMU start last season and saying that he didn't really see a bad decision. He didn't see that he has the tools. He's got to fix his throw a little bit, got to fix the flight of his ball. But overall, he didn't really see a lot of issues with Vizina as a player overall. So, which is great stuff. That is just fantastic stuff to hear. Especially, it's just overall good stuff to hear because, again, when you look down to it, I always said last year that I didn't want Chris Vizina to be our starter. Some of my buddies this thing that I just think that he's going to be Cade Klubnik Jr., a guy that he could maybe get out of the pressure. He's going to have a good zip on his ball, but overall, is he just going to find that inconsistency? And again, maybe it was the Garrett Riley offensive coordinating job that he did there that maybe ruined the confidence of Cade and ruined just the confidence of this offense in general. And that's the thing, because you have Taj Boyd as the quarterback coach. Vizina's been working with him, and we're gonna have at least a year of Vizina, if not two, because he's going to be a junior next year. So now you have the question of, can Taj Boyd, who knows the Chad Morris system, can that system be implemented correctly to get Vizina ready for next year? And I think that's actually a huge thing. I think the development's going to be much easier, especially if not a nationally great quarterback, we'll at least get a quarterback that fits the Chad Morris system that'll end up working for Clemson. And again, it all depends on if the Chad Morris system even works nowadays, because I feel like it was so revolutionary for its time, but it's kind of waned as being, not a lot of RPOs, and just that kind of thing. It's more high flying, but I mean, overall, there's also the thing that this might be a run heavy team, especially with Vizina at the helm. But Chad Morris did showcase a lot of gutsy play calling in this spring game that I think could end up sending Clemson back to the early 2010s. So that'll be really fun. If so, again, I hope that he would get back to those numbers, especially with Vizina at the helm. It would be cool to see him, because maybe he becomes a Stetson Bennett. Maybe he becomes a Joe Burrow and comes out of nowhere and becomes just this massively great quarterback who came off the bench, because Cade was a good leader. Under Dabo's a good coach. Again, we're seeing a quarterback room that's just gonna flourish. Tate's gonna be a great player for us in 2 years if he stays with us. Chris Denson always there if you need him, even though he's been struggling. This run game is going to be led by Gideon Davidson and David Iziomun, who were standouts in this spring game scrimmage, and they had eruptions in the running game, showed general efficiency, and I think it's just all going to depend on the question marks that we see with this Chad Morris run offense. But Dabo said that the spring was very productive. He said that the players have been encouraged. He wants to help them, encourage them further to have more confidence to roll into the fall with good expectations. So I'm hoping that the pressure of kind of the fallout of last season doesn't really follow the Tigers too heavily. And I think that it very well may not, especially if, they're committed to being a new look team. They're committed to having utilized transfer portal, especially for defense. I think we're going to see a team that's refreshed. We're going to see a team that's, they're coming off disappointment. How much worse can it get kind of thing? Especially because we still had a winning record last year. We still went to a bowl game. We didn't win the bowl game, but we still had a winning record. So at the end of the day, you're coming off a disappointing season. How much worse can it get? Now we're going to see Vezina. Again, I'm not completely sold on Vezina, but the film, at least the limited amount of film that we've got out of him, has been pretty promising. So I just worry that he's going to be stuck in developmental hell like Cade was. But I guess we have to just wait and see. This is really just a year that we're going to have to wait and see, because it's not like last year or this year where we were seeing the same exact roster coming back for the most part. We're not going to get any of that. Same exact coaches. And then it just shows it didn't work in the end of the day. So, obviously lost some guys to NFL, but overall it was the same team, and it was like the same things to expect, and it just didn't happen. So maybe with the new look, maybe with kind of going back to the system that Dabo was familiar with, that kind of forged the championship winning years, maybe this is the turnaround. Maybe it'll be next year will be kind of like, return to like the 9-10 wins seasons, or even just improving, just get us 8 or 9, and maybe just improve from there. Senior year, Vezina comes in, maybe we go back to the college football playoff, or at least we fight for the ACC, that kind of thing. So it's exciting. I think it's exciting. Again, how much worse can it really get after last year? I think that's really just the biggest thing coming out of this Clemson season. So, it's just, you got to look at it. You got to look at it from an optimistic perspective. So, that'll be all for the Clemson Corner, and that'll be all for the Pursuit Pod for this week. I know I was kind of rambling all over the place. There's also some construction going around, so I'm hoping that it's not visible on the mic. I hope that you guys don't hear it. I'll see it when I edit this, and I make it look all pretty. So I'm hoping that I wasn't yelling, because I was yelling in the first 20 minutes of this pod, because just the construction was so loud. So overall, again, thank you all for watching just week to week, as I always say. We had the satire issue of the Tiger Go Out. Today's April Fool's, obviously. Nothing funny going on, but we have a lot of funny articles. So please go check them out. Wearing the Tiger shirt today. Where's that? Wearing the Tiger shirt today. So keep supporting our paper. Keep supporting our school. So we'll just end this out. So go Flyers, first and foremost, because we got to get back to the playoffs, man. We have it in us. Let's just do it. Big Z, lead us to glory. Ursan, lead us to glory. Go Phils. Their season started out shaky, but Andrew Painter's here. Let's get the bats rolling. Go Tigers. Obviously, baseball team still trying to get their stuff together, trying to get some ACC wins. The football team is going to be back soon. No doubt about it. And go Sixers. So I'll see you on the next one.